Fighting games have a lot going on, and it doesn't help that some people have combos making them look like they're the main character while you are just a basic enemy who is worth just enough XP for them to level up. But to get where you are the one dunking on your friends, we have to cover some of the basics, which means we have to talk about blocking. Some games may have a designated button for blocking, but the standard is to hold back to block. Some attacks must be blocked standing, some attacks must be blocked crouching, while others can be blocked standing or crouching. However, you usually can't do two things at once. You can't block and attack at the same time, you also usually can't block while performing other actions like dashing or jumping. Some games will tweak the formula a little bit and add things like air blocking where you can block while airborne. The default is you can only block on the ground, and you must hold back to block. Whenever you do block an attack, you and your opponent are locked into a recovery animation, and whoever recovers first from that animation is going to be at an advantage. We can measure that advantage in the number of animation frames a character recovers before the other. If your attack is +1 on block, you get to move 1 frame before your opponent. Other attacks might be minus on block where you recover after your opponent, and some have you recover so much later than your opponent, they can land an attack before you even get the chance to block again. This is a block punish. They're punishing you for using that move and having it be blocked. Now, we can use frame advantage to trap our opponent. After a move that is +1 on block, if each loop tries to use their fastest move, which comes out in 4 frames, our loop, who is +1, hits first, trapping the opponent who thought they could attack in response. It's almost as if our move came out in 3 frames instead of 4. Frame traps can also be created by moves that are minus. If you can go into a target combo, a chain, a string, or cancel into a special move, even if a move on its own might be minus on block, if you can threaten a follow-up attack with a small gap between both moves, you can create a frame trap. This gap between moves is important, because if our opponent is still trapped in blocks, then they cannot act at all. They can't fall for our trap. And the reason we like frame traps is because it makes our opponent want to keep blocking. Then we can start using throws which are designed to beat blocking. Throws in 2D fighters are in 2 categories, a normal throw or normal grab, and a command throw. Every character has a normal throw, and you can break a throw by pressing the throw input yourself at about the same time. But command throws are a little bit different. They generally have a unique input command and cannot be broken the same way. You must use the other options to avoid a throw, usually jumping or backdashing to avoid them. Tekken throws look different. Yes, you can use movement like ducking or backdashing to cause a throw to whiff, but breaking throws looks different. Throws have different breaks depending on the throw. Most of these throws have an animation cue you can react to and break out of. Look at the animation, and based on what animation it is, you know what break it is. But some throws, King, have identical animations, making it a true mix-up for the correct throw break. You can't watch the character move and then decide is it a 1 break, a 2 break, or a 1+2 break. Outside of using moves that are plus on block, often, after a knockdown, you are also at a frame advantage where you can continue to pressure your opponent. You may hear this pressure while your opponent is getting off the ground, referred to as Okizeme, and having strong Oki after a combo means not only did you deal lots of damage to your opponent, you're still at an advantage and can continue your pressure. Tekken has Okizeme, but it looks a little bit different as you're able to hit the opponent while they are on the ground. Was this move they win for guaranteed, or was it something that I got hit by because of the option I chose to get off the ground? The basic mix-up of fighting games, strike or throw, the thing that loses to blocking and the thing that beats blocking can be covered using an option select, repeating 2 options at the same time. You perform the same input every time, but based on the game state you get a different outcome. The easiest and strongest example of this is the delay tech. This lets us block strikes and tech their throws at the same time. We do this by blocking with the first few frames on wake up where their well-timed attack would normally hit, and then we follow with the throw input. We're defending against 2 things at once, strike and throw, so when I just never get hit, I can never lose? Even an OS has a weakness. The first weakness you might have guessed is altering our timing to not connect on the first few frames as usual, but instead to delay our attack timing to hit them when they are trying their delayed throw tech. Timing this can be tricky, so I actually recommend using a shimmy to bait the throw tech instead. This is relatively safe as you'll cause their delay tech to whiff and you'll bait Wake Up Super or other invincible reversals too, and on top of that, since you're blocking, only lows can catch you. Overall, it's a really safe option and can lead to high reward. Doing an invincible super on wake up can be very strong. It does a good chunk of damage and you only have to ask the question, are they blocking on my wake up? And not asking, is this a normal throw, a command throw, an overhead, a low attack, a delayed attack? It can be a long list of things you have to worry about, but an invincible reversal will just make it a binary decision. Are they blocking or not? One blocked reversal can mean you lose the round for being wrong. To add a little more to your hesitation about using invincible reversals, there are some Okizeme setups, like a safe jump, that functions almost like an offensive option select. Their jump attack connects if you did anything other than an invincible reversal, but they then block in time if you did. Every option has its own inherent risk reward, and the balance of each option helps players make their choice. Almost always the safest option is blocking. A counter hit combo almost always deals more damage than a fixed amount of damage from a throw. This is where you may have heard the proverb, take the throw. It's often better to keep blocking instead of trying to perform another option, but if you block too much, your opponent will just throw you over and over until you die. Alright, time for a somewhat dry interlude. We're going to give you a quick vocab quiz here and talk about fighting game notation so you don't think people are talking about 8th grade algebra. Although we're going to cover some terms here, if you ever hear a term you haven't heard before, the fighting game glossary is going to have a definition. Just about everything you'll hear in the FGC is there. First, we're going to start with unsafe on block. As it sounds, if your opponent blocks a move that is unsafe, they're able to land a guaranteed hit to punish you for using that move. Safe on block is the reverse. When a move is blocked that is safe, your opponent can't punish you for it. An anti-air is a normal or special move that excels at hitting an opponent out of the air. But what the hell is a normal move and what is a special move? A normal attack is usually an attack done by a single press of one of your game's buttons. In Street Fighter, there are 6 light, medium, heavy versions for punch and kick. Command normal is usually done by holding a direction and pressing one of these buttons, and a special move is, well, special. They're often done by using a combination of inputs such as quarter circle forward and punch to perform Ryu's Hadouken. These moves have different properties and are much more unique compared to normals. However, some games have one-button specials or simplified input specials. These are where instead of performing a specific combination of inputs, you have a button designated for special moves, much like you'd have a button specifically for a light punch. Now we need to talk about notation. This is the written word for fighting games. Different games will have different styles of notation, and each player is going to have some variation in how they write it. It's almost like your own style of handwriting specifically for fighting games. I think that would be interesting is looking at how different fighting game communities write and how it connects to when the game started. A Street Fighter notation is much closer to talk about Street Fighter in person, where other fighters follow numpad notation related to the 10-key numpad found on calculators, later keyboards when communities shifted online away from the arcades. Regardless, there's no correct way to write notation. The only correct way is using whatever is understood best by whoever you're working with. If they're a Street Fighter player, there's a decent chance they'll gravitate to notation that looks a bit more like this. If they're a Guilty Gear player, there's a decent chance they'll gravitate toward notation that looks like this. Different people have their own handwriting, and if you're ever unsure of what their notation means, just ask. You may hear people mention RPS in fighting games, and yes, they're referring to rock, paper, scissors. More specifically, a situation that arises in a game where each player can pick an option that beats a certain option but loses to something else. If each player can only choose from 2 options, we sometimes call it a 50-50. You only have 2 choices and you're either right or wrong. An example of RPS is after a knockdown. I can choose to block on wake up, which is going to beat my opponent's strikes, but it'll get me thrown. I can choose to hit a button, be it a normal or a throw, but that's going to lose to a well-timed strike. Or I can try and beat both strike and throw by doing a delay tech or an invincible reversal. Both of these are going to lose to a shimmy. It's an RPS scenario. Now, although the options we have function similar to RPS, the risks of being wrong and the reward for being right are not equal. Choosing rock and rock, paper, scissors has the exact same risk as it does reward. We're going for a delay tech is arguably riskier even though it covers 2 options at once. That's why we talked about taking the throw earlier. It's referencing the option with the lowest risk in the moment. Depending on your game or even just the character you're fighting, the safest option, the one with the least inherent risk, may be different from just blocking. You want to pick the safe option, but you don't want to pick the safe option every time because you don't want to become predictable. A predictable foe is a dead one. And the reward you're looking for may not be immediate damage, but better positioning, getting out of the corner and putting your opponent in the corner. Knowing what all of your options are in a given situation and the risk reward of each helps you make an informed decision. Both the attacker and defender have a wheel of options to rotate through, and staying one step ahead can lead to a quick 3-0. Now onto a rather big topic, neutral. Neutral is the time where neither character is in a disadvantaged state and are free to perform whatever action they wish in real time. So if you're knocked down to the ground or in block stun, neutral is over and RPS begins. In neutral, you aren't restricted to a selection of options like in most RPS scenarios. You can do whatever you want, but how do I decide what to do at any given moment? Instead of thinking about every option individually, there's a concept called the 3 pillars of neutral. Everything you do end up doing in neutral falls into these 3 broad categories. You might be unable to react to your opponent's approach, so instead you hit a button preemptively to contest the space in front of your character, making it harder for your opponent to approach. You might instead wait and try to react to your opponent, be it trying to attempt a whiff punish or anti your opponent's jump attempt. Or you might notice your opponent's waiting and instead walk forward to gain space. You might even be able to walk close enough to throw them. I first heard about this idea from Krakatoa's video, neutral.mp4. It goes more in depth about each category and you should go watch it. Why does it matter that I use these labels for what I'm already doing? This lets us categorize what we're doing at any given moment, and more importantly, what our opponent is doing at any given moment. This is to jumpstart problem solving. If you watch your opponent throw a projectile, you might try and jump on reaction to it to get around it and punch them for it. They recovered in time to anti-air. Well, now we know that if we want jumping to work, we're probably going to have to try jumping sooner. We have to do it preemptively when we think the opponent's going to throw a fireball. But if I jump preemptively, isn't that just me guessing they'll throw a projectile? Yes, you are making a guess, and guessing is a part of neutral, but you aren't making a blind guess. At any given moment, each of you are making decisions, and you can make an educated guess based on everything you see on screen and everything you have seen. What have they done previously? If I'm far enough away from my opponent where the only attack that can hit me is a projectile, I'm thinking a few things. Are they going to throw a projectile to stop me from moving closer so I can hit them? Are they going to try and move forward so they can hit me? Are they going to try and jump at me? Should I jump at them? If they have a life lead, they may choose to stay away and throw projectiles, so I might be inclined to jump. But if I have super available, they may be too scared to throw projectiles, so I might be able to approach on the ground. Fighting games are not just guessing, and reacting is important too. If I can move in and out of range of my opponent's attack to try and get them to press a button on reaction, by me moving backwards I'll cause the attack to whiff and I get a punish. With almost no risk, got my opponent to give me an opening to land a free hit. After a couple of times of this, I may instead sit there and block. Well, if they won't attack me as I walk up, just how close can I get to them? Will they just let me walk up to point blank and throw them? Will they attack me to stop me from getting into throw range? Can I walk forward and delay my attack to counter their delayed attack when I walk up? Can I walk forward then jump over them and try and land a cross-up? Fighting games are sick because there's so many opportunities for back and forth between players, allowing each to change up their game plan and try to get an opening. It's all happening in real time and going through what each of us can do, where we are on screen, how far away we are from the wall, how much resources each of us have, and what each of us has done earlier in the set. This mix of reactable and unreactable options create this intense back and forth between players that make fighting games so fucking sick to play. Playing long sets against friends where we are forced to adapt and counter-adapt, otherwise we get dusted, is so much fun. It feels like a battle, it feels like we're fucking fighting. Different games all have different characters, system mechanics, and overall vibes for balance. Everyone has their own take on fighting game balance, even more so with regular patches for modern fighting games. However, you have to play the game as it is, not how you wish it was. You can adapt and perform well no matter the game, it just takes time. And if you feel like you'd have more fun trying a different game, that's perfect. The genre has been around since the arcade era, so there are a ton already out there to try, and there are indie titles coming out all the time too. There's no better time to play fighting games. Now, I would have left you here and threw up the end card, but there's some more videos I want you to watch. First off, LK has a great video called You Don't Always Have to Win. It came out almost 2 years ago, but it's applicable to literally every game you play. Next recommendation is Sajim's video, Your Neutral Does Not Need to Be Clean to Be Effective. You've got to hear it, as well as Sajim's video, Attitude Can Be So Poisonous to the Experience. For Tekken players, you probably already see and watch VDX, but I want to recommend his video, Tekken 8 is Hard for Beginners, and that's a good thing. Talking about how it takes time to improve and incorporate things into your gameplay. You only get to be a noob once, so you might as well enjoy the time it takes you to learn and develop these skills. Now, to end off, I'm going to recommend Brian F's Why You Lose More As You Get Better. It sort of adds on to the fact that not only does it take time to improve, you won't be applying skills perfectly when you first start to try them out, and for a while you might see a dip in performance.